Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Lego Church. I can't believe this is week number 7 for Lego Church. I couldn't believe it myself, and I had to go back and review some of the lessons that we did. We did David and Goliath and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and we studied the Last Supper, and we studied Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection, and then we've done 2 weeks on Jonah. This week we're going to start the 3rd week on Jonah, but before we get to that, I want to point you guys to the ALCC Journey Facebook page. There's something really amazing there that I was shown this week. Alexis has turned in her very own version of Lego Church. She did an amazing job telling the story about Jacob and how he came to know his wife and how he got married. And she did some amazing crafting with Legos. I think I've got some competition, but I think I may have someone that can fill in for me if I ever get sick. So, like I said, this week we're finishing up in Jonah. Jonah, we have learned some great things about Jonah. The first week we learned about how our sin can affect other people and there could be consequences for other people for our sin. The last week we learned about Jonah and how he was a mirror image of Jesus and how he sacrificed himself to save the people on the ship. And this week we're going to learn something a little bit different. We're going to learn about God's love and how much he loves us, and not just us, but everybody around us. So let's do a little bit of review. We're going to look at last week's story a little bit. We're going to see how Jonah was thrown overboard from the ship after he tried to run away from God, and the great fish gobbled him up and spit him back up on the shore. So let's go take a look at that.
All right, so here we are. As you recall, last week Jonah was swallowed by the big fish. And this big fish, God had him spit Jonah up onto the
Dry land after Jonah had spent 3 days and 3 nights inside the fish.
And Jonah had been praying to God for that amount of time, and it was time for Jonah to be spit up on the dry land. See if I can get Jonah out of there. And there he is. Jonah ready to go to Nineveh.
All right, so there we find Jonah. He's freshly vomited up from the fish, and he is ready to go to Nineveh. But you know what? I don't think he was really ready to go. He still wasn't too happy about God sending him there. He was going to do it, but he still wasn't too happy, and he still couldn't quite figure out why God wanted to save the Ninevites. After all, they had been persecuting Israel for many generations. So you know what? I thought that I would kind of look at this a little bit differently, show you the way that my mind works as far as understanding things in the Bible and trying to figure out exactly where Jonah was coming from. So let's go take a look at a couple different ways that maybe Jonah was feeling. I kind of feel like Jonah was kind of angry. Have you ever had someone that made you angry, or someone that pestered you, someone that bothered you all the time, and you just didn't like them, or you just had a hard time getting along with them? I'm going to show you a couple examples. Maybe this will kind of help you understand maybe how Jonah was feeling. Let's go take a look.
All right, so here we find Jonah. He is at the park. He's playing on the swing set with a couple of buddies. Looks like he's having a good old time. It's a nice, clear day, swinging back and forth. But you know what? All of a sudden, this mean guy, I think we know who that is. This mean guy comes up and he tells him, "I want to swing. You need to get off now." Well, this guy looks pretty intimidating, and Jonah's pretty scared. So he decides he's out of here. So Jonah leaves. Now, I don't know about you. If I were Jonah, I'd be pretty upset at that guy. All right, so let's take a look at another example here. You'll see we find Jonah. He's standing in this long line of people here. It looks like we find ourselves in the cafeteria, maybe at school or something. See all the kids that are lined up to get lunch there. We've got some kids over here that already have their lunches and are having a good time eating. And here's Jonah. He is next in line. But who do we see coming through the door? Uh-oh. There he is. He's coming through the door. The same guy that was at the playground, at the swing set. He comes walking up to Jonah, and he stands there and he looks at him and he says, get his cape out of his face here. Hey, punk, thanks for saving my place in line. I'm next. So once again, he looks at him. Oh, very scary. So Jonah gets out of line. Our friend here takes his spot, and Jonah winds up leaving. Now, I don't know about how you would feel about that, but after standing in that long line, I'd probably be pretty upset at that guy right there. Let's take a look at one more example. All right, so once again, we see, well, who's this guy here? Oh, there's our guy that's been bugging our friend Jonah a lot. Let's see what happens here. Oh, what's this? Oh, up comes the school bus. School bus comes. Got to put out the red stop sign on the other side, of course. And here's our friend who's going to get onto the bus. Now, what happens once he gets onto the bus? Well, let's close the door and let's find out. Oh, look at that. There's Jonah right here sitting on the bus. And here comes the bad guy. He comes walking down the aisle. Hey, guess what? You are in my seat. Get out. So once again, Jonah's very scary, or very scared. He gets out of his seat, goes to the back of the bus, and our mean guy proceeds to sit in the seat that Jonah was already sitting in. I don't know about you, but just like in the cafeteria and at the swing set, I'd be pretty upset if I was Jonah. All right, so that was 3 pretty good examples of kind of getting into the mindset of Jonah and how he felt about helping out these Ninevites that were being wicked. He didn't like the Ninevites for all that they had been doing to Israel for many, many generations. But God wanted him to go and give them a message. In fact, let's look at our Bibles here and see what God said to Jonah a second time. Jonah chapter 3 verse 1 says, Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. Go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim to it the message that I give you. Now, can you imagine if you were the Jonah that got kicked out of his seat on the school bus, maybe got kicked out of the line in the cafeteria, or even off of the swing set, like I showed you? Could you imagine then if you were told that you needed to go and help that person? Maybe that person was having a hard time in math class, and your teacher told you that you needed to be the tutor to him. Would you want to do that? Probably not. But neither did this Jonah. He didn't want to do it either, but he did. So he went to Nineveh. Here's the message that he gave to the Ninevites. It says in verse 4, On the first day Jonah started into the city, he proclaimed 40 more days and Nineveh will be overturned. And just like that it says, the Ninevites, in verse 5, the Ninevites believed God. They declared a fast, and all of them, from the greatest to the least, put on sackcloth. So, they immediately turned from their ways, just from that very simple message that Jonah gave from God. It's totally amazing that these people turned from God. And you know, the city of Nineveh was huge. It took Jonah 3 days to get through the whole city. Let's go take a look at some of the people that the Word of God saved just because of Jonah's simple message that we found in verse 4. 40 more days and Nineveh will be overturned. Let's go look. All right, so here we have Jonah, and we find him outside the walls of Nineveh. And as you can see, there's a great number of people on the walls of Nineveh. Now, I have a lot of Legos, but I don't think that I could build the city of Nineveh where it took Jonah 3 days to get through it. It was such a big city that I think that I would need maybe triple the Legos that I have now. So we just asked some of the Ninevites to come and sit on the wall. As you can see, we've got our king here. We've got a big group of people from the city of Nineveh. And all of these people, plus the thousands of more that heard what Jonah had said and what the king had proclaimed, they all came to know the one true God because of this guy right here. Jonah wasn't too happy about it, but he did it anyways. And you know what this shows? This shows the amazing love of God.
All right, we see how Jonah made it to Nineveh. He distributed God's message to all those people. So many people in that city turned to God that day. But you know what? Jonah still had a bit of an attitude. Let's take a look at chapter 4, verse 1. But Jonah was greatly displeased and became angry. He prayed to the Lord, "O Lord, is this not what I said when I was still at home? That is why I was quick to flee to Tarshish. I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love. O God, who relents from sending calamity." Now, Jonah had this figured out from the very beginning. He knew that God is a God of love and abounding in grace. But he was still angry about it. He didn't want these people to be saved. As we could see from the examples that I gave, kind of the way that Jonah was feeling. He was feeling kind of angry that he got booted out of his seat on the bus. He got booted out of the line in the cafeteria and also off of the swing set. But yet he had to be nice to them anyways. And so Jonah was upset about it. But you know what? Jonah knew at the very beginning that God is a God of love. And that's what we take away from this story today. He is a God of love. He's abounding in grace, and he loves everyone. He doesn't love just the nice people. He loves everyone. He loves everyone equally, even the wicked people, like the people in Nineveh. He loves them, and he wants everyone to turn back to him. And if he can use you or I to do that, that's great. So next time, when you're around that person that you don't care for too much, try to do something nice for them. You might be surprised by the reaction that you get. Hey, you know what? I've got one more thing. This is our last week on Jonah, and I have a special craft for you. I want to show you. All right, so if you guys go to the ALCC Journey Facebook page, you'll find on there instructions on how to do a craft for this week. It happens to be an origami whale. Now on the site it shows when you're doing it that you have a piece of paper that is gray on the back and white on the front. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can use a piece of white paper. And what I did is I got out my crayons and colored the top part gray. So there is my big fish for Jonah. Have fun, guys. Hope to see you again next week. And be safe and stay healthy. Love you guys. Bye.